And there, we made it past the logo stage. So welcome to the SOE Community Webcast for this week. I'm Linda Carlson, also known as Brass the Dwarf, and I am delighted to be helping host a Vanguard webcast. These guys don't really need me. I think I was just brought in here to keep them under control. We are going to be talking about the City of Brass, or, you know, really it should be the City of Brass, and I've taken the liberty of adding an E to the end because I always wanted a town named after me. That's not who it's named after, is it?
We're not going to do that.
So joining me today are creative director Steve Denuser, some of you may know him as Moorguard, and game designer Corey Lefevre. Isn't that the best last name ever in the entire industry?
It means the fever in
French.
Of course.
Oh, I'm so glad that we have Steve here to help us with
Translate.
that. And also we want to make sure that you meet our producer, Harvey Burgess.
Hey, Harvey.
Yeah. He's the strong, silent type. Anyway, but he's here to make sure that these guys don't say anything off message.
He looks great in a halter top, so...
I'm impressed, really.
And those
He's been working out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so before we actually start talking about the City of Brass, we all just got back from SOE Live. This is the first time we've had a strong Vanguard presence at the show for probably 2 or 3 years. How did you guys find it?
Yeah, I thought it was really great. We had this nice, loyal contingent of followers there that, you know, we had about 4 or 5 of us there, so we could spend a lot of one-on-one time with them. Had brunch with people. It was really nice. Got a lot of, you know, personal feedback on stuff. They got to see that we, you know, we're real people. We're not just developers sitting off in a tower somewhere. And interacting with them, we got a lot of really good feedback on the game.
I think one of the things is they were pleased to know that you actually exist. I can tell you that hosting SOE Live over the past couple of years, when it was still fanfare, it was sort of like, where's the Vanguard stuff? Where's the Vanguard people? It was really kind of scary. So loyal, I think, is a good term. Was this your first time at SOE Live, or?
It was my second time to SOE Live. First time actually as representative of the company, though. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You didn't get fired, so not too much fun.
No.
Yet.
Oh.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Those videos will be going up next.
Hopefully not. But yeah, it was, I think the players were probably sick of us by the time it was all said and done. We spent a lot of time with them.
That's not what I heard. Actually, I'm still getting messages from players who were really happy to meet you guys and have a chance to talk to you face to face. They seem pretty excited about what you're doing for the game.
Yeah, it was a really positive experience.
Yeah, fan conventions are always my favorite kind to go to. I mean, industry things are cool, like GDC and stuff like that, but it's really being able to interact with players who love these games that really energizes me the most.
Yeah.
I think everybody came back with that same sort of perspective. I heard much the same thing from the guys on the EQ and EQ2 teams and so on. It is a lot of fun. So let's get on to the City of Brass.
Yeah.
What's the story behind it? Did you guys actually write it yourselves?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's those of you familiar with the area that the dungeon is set in. There's a lot of stuff that's based on kind of classic Middle Eastern mythology, and you know, kind of Arabian Nights and Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, that kind of thing, and the same kind of stuff that Disney based their Aladdin movie on. You know, so it's got that familiar kind of feel to it. And so we wanted to kind of tell a story that had those classic roots. And so you know, it dates back to a story, this ancient legend in the desert of this thief who was fleeing for his life, and he kind of stumbled into this cave of vast riches, this cave of wonders. And amongst all the gold and the gems, the most valuable thing in there was this lamp, this enchanted lamp that held a genie. We've heard this story before.
We have.
But when he interacts with it, something a little different happens. So this genie it turns out, had been imprisoned within this lamp for a long time because he had dared to try to rise up and seize power, and he wanted to control the many planes of existence. And so the gods sealed him away in this lamp. And so the same enchantment that holds him in this lamp prevents him from going after these artifacts of power himself. But a mortal isn't bound by those same restrictions. So he makes a deal with this thief. And this thief, who has ambitions of his own to become a king of the Mordebi people, the genie says, well, I'll give you this wealth and power in exchange for you stealing these relics for me. So the mortal agrees, and the genie comes through and provides him with all the wealth and the riches for him to raise an army and seize control of the throne. But something kind of happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course.
with this king, and he starts to actually care about his people, and he starts to realize that if he does what he says he was going to do and steal these ancient relics that are related to Sartok and all this history that's been built up in Vanguard, that this genie will do some very bad things. And so he decides to renege on his portion of the pact.
Which can't be good for him.
It can't be real good. So this genie is none too pleased, and even though he's still confined, he can't go after the relics himself, he decides to take revenge on this king. So he summons forth his Afridi army from the Plain of Fire and sends them into to attack the Mordebi people, and really ravages their empire and lays waste to the land, leaves it a scorched desert. And as the last vestiges of the Mordebi are fighting back against these Afridi, they cry out to the gods for help. And so the gods decide that this war has been unjust, that the jinn who sent his Afridi in there went too far. So they banish the Afridi back to the Plain of Fire, and banish the genie back into his lamp.
Wow,
so
this is like a 10-part miniseries.
It is. You know, we like to have a nice big story. But so the crux of it is with the events that happen in the Pantheon of the Ancients, one of the end game zones of the game, the gods are kind of distracted. So the genie's able to kind of will his Afridi back out. And in the meantime, they've built the city of Brass, this great city, so that he can build his empire and one day take revenge on the descendants of this king who betrayed him. So that's kind of where players come in. The barrier between the Plane of Fire and the mortal realm has weakened. These Afridi are coming through. They're taking mortal prisoners back and enslaving them in the city. So that's kind of where you come in, and Corey can kind of talk about how the play experience weaves into that story.
And before we get to that, now I'm quite intrigued because you did all that without notes. I'm impressed. But Steve, how long have you been back working with SOE? Because this has been a big topic of conversation amongst the players. Some people are just going, oh my God, Morguard's back, when did that happen? So,
yeah, it's been, what, I guess, a month and a half or so that I've been back.
Not very long. Now, your title is creative director, so you must have just dove right in.
Yeah, so as everybody knows who's ever experienced part of it, Vanguard's a huge game.
Yes.
And the amount of documentation and lore and backstory that's built up within the wiki and within our repository is massive. So it's, you know, that's been it's been a lot of fun for me to delve into that, because I'm a story guy. I love telling stories.
Right.
And with such a wealth, I can talk to Corey and the other people about, you know, so who is this guy? What does that mean? And, you know, how's this connected? And so I just kind of mentally, that's kind of my process. I kind of connect the dots. And I think when we have new content like this, it gives us an opportunity to kind of look back, see what's been written before, and say, you know, that's a really cool bit. Let's tie that together. And we have this new stuff here, so let's tie something to that. And, you know, for me, there's the same kind of thing I tried to do on EverQuest 2, was like take all this rich mythology that people love over all these years and say, you know, that was a cool thing, but it didn't go anywhere. Could that be connected to this?
Exactly, to make it matter to the players.
Yeah, to make it matter. So that's what we've tried to do with City of Brass, and that's what we're going to do with content going forward, is like, what have we, you know, what stories have we told to players that just kind of didn't lead anywhere, or that kind of left off, but those stories stick in people's heads. You know, we love those, especially the more classic, like this story is. It's just one of those tales that, you know, parents tell to their kids, and they sit wide-eyed and listen to them. So Steve talks for 4.5 hours about the whole vision behind this thing. Now it's your job then to translate that into reality. So what sort of content can we expect, and what sorts of players is this geared towards?
Okay, it's geared primarily to characters that are endgame adventurers, level 55. Possibly 54 if you've got good friends and good gear.
Okay, make note, my 34 Goblin Shaman does not qualify. Okay.
Yeah, you got a ways to go yet.
All right.
So this is the first part of this story. It's going to eventually lead to other hooks, but players are introduced to the content from the perspective of some slaves that have escaped from the City of Brass. And it's up to them to decide whether they want to actually help the slaves, or if they're going for more base desires like greed and such, because there's, as we know, with the Freedies, there's always treasure and stuff like that around. So.
Yeah, well, there's always, you know, whenever you make bargains like this, there's always a flip side to them. Yeah. And so in some of the people you may encounter in this, who may seem to have altruistic motives, you may find out that that's not necessarily the case.
So do the players actually have to make choices then that determine how they go through the storyline?
Yeah, the initial like entry quest has a bit of a choice to make whether you're going to be altruistic or greedy. And then from there we go in. It's a fairly progressive dungeon. There are 12 boss encounters made for this new dungeon.
Okay.
There's 6 rare spawn encounters that are going to help with an itemization scheme that we've set up, and there's also a 12-man raid at the end.
Ah, very nice.
So yeah, should keep our veteran players challenged. It's meant to complement their Pantheon of the Ancients content without...
Of course, they're all sitting at home right now going, I bet I can get through that in 4 days. 4 days!
Well,
That'll be that max.
I don't know. The test results aren't showing that so far.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
You expect it to be a challenge?
Yeah, should be.
Well, we don't want to say that because then people will be like, I'll show them.
And do it in 4 days, right,
Yes,
okay.
so thanks for encouraging that.
Yeah, but come on.
Our veteran players have been very patient, so they've gone a long time
really
without
have.
new content, and yet they remain devoted to this game. So, we in turn feel like we have a commitment to them to make quality content that is fun to play through. And so this is just the first stage of that. We're going to keep on doing this at a regular cadence.
Right. So let's give these guys a taste of this quality content of which you speak. You guys brought along 10 screenshots, and if you can talk the folks at home through these screenshots, what are we looking at here?
This is one of the, looking out from one of the corners of the city itself, inside the city. We can see some of the motifs there with the lamps. We can see a bit of the plane itself. It's just a small part of the plane of fire,
Yeah,
with the fiery sky. And
yeah, we should make that clear, that this is only a portion. This is the city that this Jinn had his servants build. So there's other parts of the plane of fire as well that aren't represented here yet. So,
yet?
Well.
Okay, they just made note of the
I
word yet.
I'm just kidding. It's the whole plate of
And here we've got, it's just kind of near the entry area. We've got a couple different Minotaur and Cyclops mercenaries. We've got a little bit of vegetation there, which seems a little out of place, but that's a bit of the presence for the content later that'll be explained.
Ah.
Yeah, rich planar influence.
Rich planar influence. Wow.
Sure.
And here we're outside the city of Brass. There's a little bit of... It basically sits above a caldera in this section of the plane of fire, and this is the external part of the city. We've got a molten elemental here.
Okay, and is he fairly typical of the types of? Oh, and what is this?
And that is that's Neathis. That's one of our 12 bosses. She is a Phoenix matron. She sort of is the den mother, if you will, of all the other phoenixes in the area.
Okay.
And
Now, with your boss mobs, do you need a full group to take them down, or are they raid mobs?
No, this is a full 6-man group,
Okay.
traditional group. And then here we've got a shot from the outside of the city looking in, one of the 4 gates.
Yeah, you can certainly see the Middle Eastern influence there.
Yeah. And then this is one of our big Cyclops mercenaries. He's all strapped down and ready for battle there. And then this is another kind of towards the central area of the city. We've got some of the Afridi Magi, it looks like there.
I should point out, as it's not reflected in these screens, but our character artists have been ramping up as well. We've got an art team that works on Vanguard. And so when players actually get into this zone, they'll see that we've revamped the Afridi models a little bit.
Really?
And tweaking them as part of our, there's been, in the process of ramping up this team, there's been a lot of lost knowledge. And so our artists have had to learn some of the pipelines and kind of knock the dust off some of the techniques that they use, because there hasn't been new art put in the game for a long time.
A very, very long time.
So this is just a first step, just some tweaks, but you can expect to see some more things like that, some things, some characters and zones getting tweaked a bit, and just a little tightening things up and making them look fresher.
Yeah.
Overall, one of the comments we've always had about Vanguard from players is the fact that the art in it is very good, and that it's really held up well over time. So that's pretty exciting. All right, next picture.
And here we've got a close-up of one of our Afridis. This is really near the entrance. A little bit of the gazebo there in the background.
So these guys are really tall then.
Yes.
What's that creature at his feet? There's
That's
a couple of them there.
Those are our little flare hounds. They're kind of like hellhounds.
Nice.
Your average character is just a little bit taller than them, so that kind of helps put it into perspective in terms of size.
Yeah. It's a very massive feeling place when you're walking around in here. You get a real nice sense of scale.
Yeah. And then here we've got a close-up of one of the Magi from his balcony overlooking the city itself. This is the palace region.
Very nice.
And this is another close-up of a screenshot, I think 3 back there. We've just got one of their little fonts of power
Everybody's
scattered
got fonts
throughout.
of power.
Of course.
I think it's absolutely mandatory.
Yeah.
These were stolen from Pox Nora, by the way.
Oh, totally.
Oh, that's terrific. It's really nice to be able to actually see some images. Now, have those images been released anywhere else, or are they...
You know, I think marketing has use for them somewhere, but I have no idea. I think we just raided their coffers of images and said, here, we want to put these out on the webcast, because it's for the fans. And
So we're still on schedule to release next week with this, right?
Correct.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Okay, we'll give you their cell phone numbers if it doesn't launch on time. But what else is coming in store for Vanguard? I mean, you guys are still, you're undertaking quite a reasonable amount of production this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've kind of got stuff going on multiple fronts. So while City of Brass has been in production, we've also been working on revamping some of our lower level content. So we have a kind of a multi-region revamp going on that starts off in the Loamshire area and kind of takes players for, it'll be like a fresh path of content for like level 10 to level 25, 30-ish in that range. And that includes revamping some of the dungeons that are in that area.
Very
So
cool.
we'll see some fresher quests. We're putting kind of an overarching quest through that area, and you know, some new items and stuff like that. So we really want to kind of freshen that up. And you know, the world of Talon is so big, so massive. There's so many zones in this game. We'd love to go through them all, but we can only do so much at a time. So we want to do some stuff for the high-end players, some stuff for newer players that are coming in, and just constantly try to keep things fresh. And
So, Corey, the stuff that he's just outlined for you, that's like 3 years worth of work. Are you terrified now,
Nah,
or
it's
have
not
you got
that
this all
far out.
scheduled
tell
out?
them what else.
Yeah, and then we're also turning an eye back towards crafting and diplomacy, because they're
Really?
two of the more unique things about our
No
game.
kidding. Diplomacy people either love it, 90%, or hate it, 10%.
I love it.
So, I do too, yeah.
And then Panker Z is probably the next big thing we're going to be working on in terms of like endgame dungeons, and also turning an eye towards Old Targanor and a few other.
Yeah, again,
things.
there's lots of things that we like to do. Pankerzy is definitely the next thing, the next big thing on the plate, and that'll have stuff for both groupers, the little fish.
Groupers, yes,
groupers,
yes.
love that. For group players and raiders. So that's been one of the areas that players have really been interested for a long time, because you got dark elves, you got dragons. Like, what else could you want in an adventure game? So we're gonna make that cool. That's gonna be awesome. And yeah,
A few more overland raids as well.
Yeah, that's right. The next in the Sons of Torsheim series is going
How
to
are
be
you
coming
keeping
out
all
soon.
this straight? You must have a heck of a development document.
We just chain ourselves to our desks with IVs of caffeine, and
Yeah, I find
Very
that
nice.
if I don't let them go and eat or anything like that, they get a lot more work.
it's true. Help, send help,
I
please.
like it.
Yeah.
So, Corey, is there something else you wanted to add about the actual development of the zone?
For City of Brass itself.
Yeah, for like the people we've had testing it. And
Oh yes,
yeah.
indeed. How dare I forget my manners? Thank you, one and all, everyone that's been coming out to the test server to help us, especially Phoenix Knights, Exile, and Cobra Guilds, and the random smattering of everyone who's taken a chance to check it out.
That was one of the things. You know, the zone has kind of been in the cooker for a long time,
Right.
and it production started on it, kind of stalled, went away, we came back. So understandably, players had some skepticism. Was
Just
it ever going to come out?
Small
Yeah.
amount of cynicism there, yes.
So that's one of the things that SOE Live really helped with. We were talking with them, having a report, and saying, look, we've got a lot of testing that needs to be done in this place. If you can help us, it'll make the zone a lot better. And they really came through, and they really helped Corey test this out.
Yeah, the outpouring of support's been really great.
It is a very solid player base, that's for
Indeed.
sure.
Yeah.
So we have just a little bit of time. There was a question about how is the experience gain in City of Brass?
Well, I mean, again, it's aimed more towards the end game characters, so not really a whole lot of experience to be had there. It's more of the challenging content and more of like your gear progression, again, to complement.
Or as it's known in the colloquial terms, fat loot?
Yes.
Yes,
Fat
okay,
loots, yeah.
very good.
All the shinies.
And it will launch at what time on what day next week?
Well, assuming the servers come up, 10 a.m. next Thursday.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. We'll make sure that we get that posted on the forums and on the on Facebook for you guys. And thank you both very much for joining us on the SOE Community Webcast this week, where we've had a hell of a good time talking about my new city. I figure if I got enough station cash. I mean, we just had a triple station cash day, right? So, yeah, name your price, sir.
Well, thanks for having us.
Well, it was terrific. And now get back to work. We have to make sure we hit that deadline.
Yep, you got it.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Sony.